Hello and welcome to Jagged Parts, the audio experience. The podcast where I talk to professionals in the film, television, and theater industry. And also give you my own 2 cents based on what I've seen, heard, and experienced along the way in this crazy industry that we love. My perspective is always personal, never filtered, and sometimes crazy. What can I say? I'm a crazy guy. Not really. I just believe in seizing the moment and going after what you want, man. Because life is short. You will probably be dead sooner than you plan to. Or be alive when you'd rather be dead. Or somewhere in the middle of that sentient spectrum. Hey, who the fuck knows? In episode 1, I had the chance to sit down and have a chat with Derrick Van Wyk, a South African-Canadian actor who is now based in Vancouver and works in the film television industry here. We talked about his adventures in the entertainment industry, including starting out working as a cruise ship director in South Africa and Europe, working as the South African dialect coach on Skyscraper, a film that was shot here in Vancouver, starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson, his experiences running his own production company, Blue Crane Ventures, that he runs along with his lovely wife, focusing on cirque-based performances. Wow. And also his unique experiences auditioning for film television here in Vancouver. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Van Wyk. Pleasure to have you on the first episode of Jagged Parts. Welcome.
Oh man, first episode of Jagged Parts. Great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to what we'll experience over the next 45 minutes or so. Yeah, such an amazing thing for you to do, to start up, and really excited to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start off with an origin story. So where were you born? Tell us a bit about where you grew up and kind of eventually transitioning into how you got into the film industry and the entertainment industry in general.
Yeah, sure, no problem. As you can hear from my accent, I'm South African originally, born in Johannesburg, South Africa, 1984. Stayed in Johannesburg for quite a while, and then stuff arose and we went down towards the coast and grew up in a little coastal town called Jeffreys Bay. Okay. Small little coastal town. Just
Is it a surfing town?
Amazing for surfing. The World Surf Tour actually stops there. It's known as the best right-handed point break in the world, which is incredible. Grew up in a small town, like I said now, and after that, as soon as I turned 18, decided that the town's a little bit too small for me. I needed to spread my wings a little and flew off to England and lived in England for a little bit and just trying to find yourself.
Where in England?
By the age of 20, I had to move back to South Africa. But I moved to London at first. At that stage, didn't really think about film or anything like that. I used to be in school productions and plays and stuff like that and really enjoyed the stage and the theater, but never really thought about pursuing it as a dream of mine or trying to do it as a living. Moved to England and I actually became an estate agent at the age of 19, which was
like real estate?
Like real estate, yeah. Real estate, and sold properties and stuff like that. Applied to stay in England after those 2 years, and they declined my visa, unfortunately. Well, fortunately now, and went back to South Africa and started studying event management and tourism management. And sat there one day, and I had to go do practical and stuff like that, and I had a chat with my dad. And my dad said to me, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do now that you kind of have to do this practical, and where do you want to go in life? I said, oh man, it's such a tough decision at 21. Like, you don't know what you want to do, right? Right. Some people may. And he said to me, a buddy of his knows about a guy who's hiring people to do work on the entertainment side on cruise ships. Okay. I said, that sounds fun. I love ships. Why not go and work on the cruise ships in the entertainment industry? And applied, fell in love with the whole idea, because it was just stage work and performing on cruise ships for 5 to 6 months, coming back to South Africa for a while and going back and touring the world. So ended up going, did that, and spent nearly 10 years of my life doing that. Built up from a general entertainer all the way up to the cruise director. The cruise director is in charge of all the entertainment which is on the ship, which is a kind of a different idea and like a production side of things. Just not necessarily creating the shows, but running the shows and being the master of ceremonies and being the voice of the ship.
Right.
Loved my job so much. But met a girl from Canada. Met a girl from Canada. She decided that she's going to get off of ship. She's a contortionist and an acrobat and performer.
Oh, wow.
So we share the same love for the stage and a little bit of the limelight. And we decided, you know what, it's time for us. I've had my 10 years of a run, and she's had her 5 or so years of a run. And let's call it quits, and we'll go and we'll work on land. Decided to move over to Canada. I was still busy with my process of immigration, so I ended up working for Disney.
Okay.
And I worked for Disney for about a year or so.
You mean in the Disney Cruise company?
Cruise Line, yeah. Disney
Okay.
Cruise Line, same thing. Disney Cruise Line was in charge of adult entertainment for Disney Cruise Line, which is a weird thing to say for Disney.
Yeah, what is adult entertainment for Disney? Please,
Well,
I want to know.
In a short little summary, while your kids are having a great time on board, the adults need something to do. So we recruited a lot of different people from, especially the US, because it's a lot of US travelers.
Right.
And guests. We got a lot of guys that used to be on America's Got Talent, or like magicians, hypnotists, jugglers, that type of deal.
Cool.
And we just do massive shows for the adults only on the Disney cruise ship while their kids are having a lot of fun.
Right.
Any case, I digress. So started coming to Canada, got my permanent residency in Canada in 2015, moved over, and got to a point in my life where I'm like, you know what? Now I'm in Canada. Mm-hmm. How are we going to pursue my love of the arts, my love of entertainment and being on stage here? I fell back to a buddy of mine who a very good friend of mine. He lives in New York now as an actor.
Okay.
And he introduced me to acting back in South Africa when I was 22, 23. We worked together, and he got a major part in a show called Getroud met Rugby, which means married with rugby. It's kind of
Is
like
that an Afrikaans?
It's an Afrikaans show,
Okay.
yeah, on a TV show called Cakenet. And he played a major part. He was called Splinterboot. He was one of the lead rugby players, and at that stage they needed an extra. They needed extras to come and play rugby for them.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I used to play rugby. He's like, well, you can come and do this. You want to come and do this? I'll introduce you to the production team. And called me over the one day, and there I went. And for the first season of Getroud met Rugby, here I was as an extra rugby player on a TV show, which is pretty surreal. Just because my love for the stage has always overpowered my love for maybe even thinking of getting into TV or film.
Okay.
However, when I got into the show, and you just see the whole production value and the way that they do things, and just how much fun you have whilst being on set, you know. So I fell in love with that. So when I moved to Canada now, fast forward now, the 10 years after the cruise ship life, got into Canada, and just listening to the buzz and the hype of the increase in the industry within BC, I'm like, well, that's the perfect stepping stone. That is what I want to do. Right. And sat down and contemplated in my mind, do I want to do production side? Do I want to do theater side? Or do I want to go more into TV and more into film?
Right.
Got to the eventual point that we're going to get stuck into doing TV and film. So got myself actually started doing background,
right,
for a lot of guys. That's like a kind of a stepping stone.
A lot of people get in like that. Yeah,
getting to background work. I got myself a background agent. They thought I was going to do so much work,
and that did not happen.
No, it happened. I started to become very picky into some of the stuff that I would do and what I wouldn't do.
Right.
Just because as you start, as you would know, you start off as non-union, which it's a very tough thing to do if you're, wage wise and stuff like that, trying to support yourself, and it takes a lot of your time if you're trying to improve yourself. So I kind of digressed from there, and I eventually got to the point where I cut it out completely and just focused more on myself and how to move forward. And my agent was super happy about that.
Okay, so that was your background agent or your principal agent?
No, that was, so I got principal agent in between. Got a principal agent due to the fact of my work that I've done in South Africa. So in South Africa, I did the Grootman rugby thing, and then I did a variety of different just adverts and commercials and stuff like that. So
yeah, I heard they could shoot a lot of commercials there, right?
Funny,
I guess because of the landscape and whatnot.
Not maybe just because of the landscape, but also because of a money factor, I would believe.
Oh, tax credits?
Yeah, tax credits, and the wage that they could pay an actor in South Africa is significantly less than they would have to pay actor from wherever the country that they're filming from, right? So this, for instance, my very first commercial I've ever done was a commercial for Imodium.
Okay.
And it was a German advert. So they flew, like the whole production company flew down from Germany. The lead character flew down from Germany, and then all his like supporting characters were all South African.
Okay.
And I thought at that stage, like, this is an amazing, I got my first advert, got my first commercial, and super stoked. And it paid me at that stage, I think, about $600
right.
Canadian. But at that stage in South Africa, that's a lot of money, right?
Of course.
Until I spoke to the German fellow who said to me that he got something like €5,500 for that.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea in Europe, because Europe has its own set of rules as well, right? And their own unions. Okay, so let's fast forward to you're in Canada, and you've started to tiptoe into principal acting.
Correct.
So were you union at this point?
No, non-union, non-union. So being called out for union productions and auditions and stuff like that too, and
when you first started auditioning, what kind of roles did you find you were going up for, and did you find you were being kind of categorized into any one hit or?
Initially when I started auditioning, when I spoke to my agent, she's like, "Oh, we'll send you out for a variety of different things. You've got this kind of look. They always try to smooch you up, and you're going to be this type of role." And so I started going out for a lot of commercials at first. Landed a Lululemon commercial, and then I started going out for a lot more TV shows, but a lot of cops, a lot of suits, lawyers, that type of deal. And still till today, I feel like I get categorized in that type of look area, especially maybe because of my age as well and what they're looking for.
It's like men in charge, men in authority.
Yeah, exactly. Like a police officer or an FBI agent or something. Right. My very first role with NBC here was on Lucifer as a special agent. So, being categorized in that is not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of work. For sure.
Tons of work.
So I have a question. So you have a South African accent, and correct. I know you work with a dialect coach as well, right?
Yeah, work with a dialect coach.
So I'm kind of curious in terms of even when you had a conversation with your agent, did your agent tell you to keep your South African accent, or did they tell you to? Because I've heard from some actors who have an accent that's somewhat unique. There's not a ton of South African actors in Vancouver, I'm assuming, that sometimes it can actually work in your favor because it sets you apart. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So is that something you've thought about, or?
When I initially met with my agent, she said to me one of the requests that she would have is that I work with a dialect coach and not lose my South African accent, but add the standard American and Canadian accent for certain productions. If I get called out, to always do it in standard American or depending on which accent that they require. Right. But I have found that most of the time when I do audition, I've auditioned and they're like, now that you've seen the casting directors a couple of times and they know that you're South African, they go, okay, cool, let's do it in standard American. So I would practice and rehearse all my things in standard American, get prepared in standard American, go and deliver it in standard American. But 80% of the time, I've been asked to also do it in South African, just to give them a bit of a choice, which I find is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just because I'm obviously much more comfortable in a South African accent. It's much easier for me in the South African accent. And like you said, there's not a lot of South Africans around. Right. Funny thing though, I've auditioned for a South African role within BC and I didn't get it.
So. Oh really? So you have competition here. Did you find out who got it?
No, I didn't find out it was for the TV show Ice.
They were looking specifically for a South
African accent, and I've seen the episode now, and the guy doesn't have a South African accent. He goes in standard American. So
probably they just changed
their whole idea, which is a big thing that they do. They change their minds all the time, right? So shouldn't take it personally at all. It's just one of those things.
So I remember you mentioned on the topic of the accent that landed you a unique opportunity last summer, right? So why don't you tell us about that?
Such an incredible opportunity. I went and auditioned for a role, of a newscaster playing in Hong Kong for the movie Skyscraper that just came out. So obviously
with Dwayne Johnson.
With Dwayne Johnson and a guy called Roland Muller, Nev Campbell, Pablo Schreiber, and there's a couple of big names in there, which is just ridiculous that I got this opportunity. And went in for the audition down on Beatty Street.
Right.
Auditioned for the role. I thought I did okay. It was they asked for a specific accent at all. They just said do it in a native accent that you have. So I did it in South African accent, and I also did it in my first tongue, which is Afrikaans.
Right.
So obviously they don't know what I said in Afrikaans, but they trust you enough to think that is what the actual words are. So I did that. About 2 days later, my agent called me and said that the production company had requested from her if I could help Beatty Street, if I can help Candice just sit down and listen to all the stunt guys that's going to come in because they're supposed to play South African.
Right.
So they've given them their lines. She sent me the lines through. I read through them. Went through to the studio, and we auditioned these guys. And it was a great experience just to be a reader for a casting director too, because you learn so much just sitting and watching like one after the other come in and the different approaches that people have. Right. In there was quite a bit of dialogue that I had to do in a very thick Afrikaans accent, which sounds a little bit different than mine right now. It's a very, very thick South African accent. And if you know the South African accent, you can pick it out right away. So I did this accent on not them seeing me, but hearing me. And after everybody's auditioned, I actually said to the casting directors, I'm like, yeah, man, it would be so cool if they could call me and I could work on the film, just because I've seen what they want, like just to do it. I got home and I said the same thing to Kara, my wife. And all of a sudden, it was literally 24 hours later, the production company called me. Wendy Jacobson from that works with Bo Flynn from Flynn Production Company. She called and she's like, I'm one of the executive producers on the show. And I was flabbergasted, like, this is ridiculous. And she goes, if you're willing and able, could you come and work on the show? Because our main or lead villain is supposed to be playing an ex-South African wash. Like, that's fantastic. So she sent me through the entire script. I read through it. I went and I saw them. Met them all, which was incredible, just because you can see these massive producers from Hollywood. Bo Flynn, Hiram Garcia, met with Rawson Marshall Thurber, who's the director of the show.
You mean the film? When you keep saying show, you mean the film, right?
The film, correct. Yeah. Sorry, just back to South Africa, I would say show, but film, correct. And finished up with almost 30 days on set.
Wow. So you were there pretty much, how long? Yeah, pretty much every day for the...
Pretty much almost every day. They filmed for roughly every second day, because they were just here for like 62 or 63 days. That was their film schedule, 63 days. And I was only on set whenever it was the character Cordis Botha, who was played by Roland Muller.
Right.
Or the stunt guys that were there. So I was on set for all of those days.
So you were basically working whatever pages they were going to shoot that day with the stunt guys and Roland on a daily basis.
I had a prelim schedule of all the days from day 1 through to 64.
Right.
And I could kind of work with Roland more so than the stunt guys a couple of weeks prior to the start of the film, and went through and sat for hours and hours and hours just trying for him to practice the accent and get everything down. It was just, such an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Super grateful for the experience too, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. How much did you find that they were open to changing the script or dialogue based on, how well or not well Roland was doing the accent, or not even that, just how much did the script change? I'm always curious because, in television, the script changes all the time. Right, you have the script supervisor who's basically keeping track of everything you're saying. If you change something that actually the director likes better, then they'll change it. So I'm just wondering, especially on a film of that big a budget, how much did you see the script change from the initial script to the final shoot?
Yeah, Initially, when I read the first draft, and read the blue draft and the pink draft, and I just it changed constantly, and just because Rawson wrote and produced or wrote and directed the film, he was very acceptable into changing different dialogue sets. And I remember vividly one scene that we had to do where it's a conversation between Roland and The Rock. Mm-hmm. And it's a very, very important scene in the film where The Rock is really down on his last wit's end, and Roland's really just, as Corey put it...
Spoiler alert?
No spoilers, no spoilers. He's just drilling him down and just giving him his last ultimatum. And we sat and we worked through it, because it was like a 3-page monologue that he had to like at one time speak. And him just coming through, having to do the accent in 3 pages, and it's so much to learn and stuff. He also went to Ross and he's like, oh, can we possibly change this up and change this up? He sat with me the one day and he's like, oh, can we, like, what is this? Can we say it better in a South African way? Are there a couple of words that we can add in? That's the South Africanism and stuff like that. So obviously had to go through approval processes and stuff like that. And so we did, and we changed a couple of things, and Rawson was super cool about it and changed a few things and made it easier, if you can say it that way. And then now seeing the finished product, I just went and saw the film on Sunday, and there's still certain things that, although it was changed, some stuff was shortened because of length of film. Like if you film for 64 days, you've got more than just an hour and 49 minutes of footage, right? So based on importance, they cut stuff out. And so it's always really, really interesting to see the initial draft of something, and then, like you say, just because they change it so much. Right. But even on a production of 125 million, there's still tons of that I've found. I'm speaking from like one experience, but and now seeing the finished product, that they have changed it.
Yeah, I often find that the masters work without ego, and for them it's always the best idea wins, as opposed to this was the initial idea that I'm precious about. I was doing stand-in work earlier this week on Legends of Tomorrow, and there was a scene where there's a party going on, and they had a slushy machine because the characters are drinking slushies spiked with alcohol, of course, to celebrate. Of course. And so as a stand-in, you kind of once the first team is in, you're in Video Village watching, right? Because you have to go in as soon as the first team gets out. And all of a sudden there was a huge crash, and it sounded like one of the big lights just collapsed on someone's head, and we all rushed in, and the slushy machine was on the floor, completely shattered, right? And the AD goes, all right, well, let's get the slushy technician, because there was a slushy technician. Can you believe that? And the director suddenly goes, hang on, why don't we just shoot like this? It could work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's brilliant, because what's happening in the scene is that people are getting drunk, and literally what happens afterwards is that the boss comes in and these 2 employees are just passed out on the floor. So why couldn't that slushy machine have broken?
Fallen over and broken, yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of people, especially if the director is also the part writer or co-writer or some part of the writing team, and he can't. Obviously, the director knows exactly what he wants and where he wants to take this episode. So if he changes, if something happens, and he can go with the change, why not? That's so cool, man.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories like Steven Spielberg when he works. Like, they basically, if something happens, they know when to get out of their own way and let the magic happen, right?
Yeah, and one of the good things too is, especially from a film aspect, where they've got 125 million to work with. Right. If you're working on a movie of the week, or you're working on a commercial, or you're working on a limited budget production, the time that you have to actually work on something is so limited. Right. So if you've only got 10 days to film, you've only got 10 days to film. Right. Where on a massive production like that, I feel if they have 5 days to film one scene, but they go over by 1 or 2 days just to get something exactly right, because they see how organically everything is moving, they'll do that, you know? Right. Because they've got that in their budget. They've got that 125 million to work with, you know? Right.
So I haven't seen the film, but I've seen the trailer, and I mean, it looks like there's a lot of action for sure, and a lot of special effects. So was there a lot of green screen acting?
Initially, as we started, it was no green screen, just a couple of on-set days. So it was a big set that they had built. But then as soon as we got into the outside of the building, and if you haven't seen or haven't heard about the film, it's Skyscraper. It's about the tallest building in the world, and The Rock's, him and his family, he's a security guy, and he's got to now just do the security detail for this entire building. And he goes off with a friend of his. I won't spoil anything. I'm just trying to think of how I can say it and everything. And there's a fire, and his family's trapped inside. So he's got to go and rescue his family.
Sounds like Die Hard.
It's a super close to Die Hard, and it's a throwback to a classic action film with an action hero that goes in and saves the day. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as you're outside of this building, and it's set in Hong Kong, although filmed in Vancouver, a lot of the work was on green screen, especially because of the special effects and him climbing up a building and like jumping off the super crane and being on top of the heliport area of the Skyscraper. It's all green screen, so it was a massive studio. Just green screen all around, green screen at the bottom, see-through, how do you say, not plastic, but those massive, just big open, it's just incredible, like green screen all over.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with that, because I think so much of acting work now is green screen, and it is going to be increasingly more and more.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of actors are not ready for that. A lot of actors still depend on like getting the reaction so they can do their thing, which is great.
Yeah.
But actors need to be able to react with a tennis ball, because you will have to do that on a film.
Oh man, you can just look at everything that's coming out. Look at what Disney's doing. They're bringing all of their classic films and they're turning it into
live action. Yeah.
So, and if you've seen and gone through and watched them film all of these things, I was privileged enough also to be on the set of Planet of the Apes a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And watching Andy Serkis do his thing.
Right.
And just how incredible that is. So I think a lot of actors need to just look at that too, because like you say, you're not going to always just have to act with another person. You'll have to interact with an inanimate object.
Right. And I also find there's a little bit of like romanticism attached to this. I find some older generation actors, they're like, they're always complaining about, this new technology, it's not even real acting anymore, or blah blah blah. It's the same train of thought of like, social media is whatever, millennial generation, right? But I mean, that's just a pessimistic way of looking at the world, and the world is changing, and either you change with it,
you've got to evolve.
You've got to evolve, right?
Look at what Steven Spielberg did with Ready Player One.
I haven't watched it, but yeah.
If you've seen that, you'll see exactly what I mean. And it's such a great mix of what there is to come. Like initially we saw Avatar like all those years ago, and everybody's like, wow, that is just incredible on what they did. And now the technology that you have into doing certain things for film is so massive. So yeah, definitely you have to evolve as an actor to, if you still want to be in the game to do certain things, definitely evolve. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. Exactly.
So speaking on that, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I mean, I don't know a ton about him, but what I do know about him, is that he has a crazy work ethic. At least that's what's reported. So I'm just wondering, did you have any interactions with him, and what did you see or learn from him about his work ethic, or in general, anything about him?
Well, such a big star on a movie set is not always easy to get close to.
Of course.
But yeah, because he had so much interaction with the guy that I was assisting and helping with his dialect and dialect coaching, I was able to be in the room a lot with him. And one of his things that, if you do follow him on Instagram and stuff like that, please do. He's got 110 or something silly million people following him for a reason. Mm-hmm. One of his biggest things is he started with $7 in his pocket. That's hence his production company, $7 Production. And he always wants to be the hardest worker in the room.
Right.
Be it in the gym, be it on TV. And I actually read a nice thing about him the other day where he was just like, you know what? Ever since I started wrestling and playing football and stuff like that, he wanted to perform for an audience, and he wants to make sure that that audience goes home and just had such a great time. It's not about him, it's about his audience.
Right.
And he's just done that to the absolute extreme. I mean, look at where he is. Forbes Top 100 just came out, and he was the number one earner of 2017-18. It's just incredible. And he's got productions coming out every single couple of, every couple of months during the course of this year, you know?
Right.
The one thing that I can say is the first time that I met him, he is such a larger than life person.
Mm-hmm.
If you would think of, I'm going to meet The Rock today, or possibly, because you don't know, and he walks up and he's just this 6'5" guy, massive biceps and shoulders, and he's just got the biggest smile, you know. And
right.
So yeah, super friendly guy, and everything that, as far as I could see,
right.
I don't know the guy
of course,
personally.
You never really know.
Yeah,
of course.
Personally, that stature, but from a working point of view, always there, always working hard. He was on set, and when we were filming, and if he didn't like something, we'll do it again. Can we do it again? Standing, speaking to Ross and asking Ross, and what was his idea? Did I do it okay? Shall we do it again?
Interesting. Did you see him act with Roland off screen? So was he staying to feed him lines when he wasn't in the shot? Did you notice that?
Say that again.
So you know how if you're filming, you flip the camera on the other person's close up. Correct. So would the Rock stay when he was not in the shot, just to give lines?
Not always.
Okay.
No, not always. He travels with two stunt doubles. And,
of course.
I'm
just curious.
It depends on the turnaround.
Right.
I feel on certain occasions he was not there. If it was a major scene where, for example, Roland, who I was coaching, had 10 lines in a monologue, then no, he wouldn't be. But if it was a short turnaround of one, he'd be there. But one very good thing that did happen on set that I can remember is the girl that plays his daughter, The Rock's daughter. Her name is McKenna Roberts. If you can look her up, she's amazing. And she had an acting coach with her, also local here from Vancouver, and. On set the one day, especially for this big scene, she was supposed to be terrified, and her dad's she hasn't seen her dad, and she's now got to leave her dad, and her dad's going to be taken away, or she's going to be taken away, and so the emotion that she needs to project. And so her acting coach said to her, come, let's, we're breathing, let's do jumper jacks, we'll run a little. And The Rock looked at it and he goes, okay, cool, you do it, everybody's going to do it. And we all just started doing a couple of jumping jacks on set to just, motivate and assist in the process, which was so cool to see,
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, man, such a cool experience. So happy that I was part of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool. So let's talk a bit about your involved with the stunt community here in Vancouver as well. So give us a bit of information on how did you get involved with the stunt community, and how would someone who aspires to get into stunt work, maybe with a little bit of martial arts and sports and some physical training, how would they get into the stunt world?
Okay, so I met a bunch of the stunt guys now through Skyscraper. I have not yet worked as a stunt guy or anything like that, but I'm pursuing to. And the way that I'm going about things, and I've asked them kind of to give me just a couple of tips on what to do, what to train, where to train, which is also a very important thing, and kind of who to connect with within the industry. And the number one thing that the guys that I worked with said that, go and do some MMA, go and do some mixed martial arts type of form of exercise, any fighting type of deal. Because let's face it, if you're going to be a stunt guy, if you want to work in stunts, you're going to be having to fight, you're going to be having to fall, etc. So I took their advice, and I took up some boxing and kickboxing and some sparring and stuff like that, and going to certain trainers or areas that they had said, listen, you know what, on a Sunday, this guy does these classes, that's how you get involved with the community.
Right.
And that's what I've done. And very interestingly enough, if you actually go through to Shoreline Studios, I believe it is, just off of Clark.
Okay.
They've got a stunt lab that they run.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, so November 13th of this year, I'm actually doing one of their stunt labs, and it's a day course, and you get squibbed and stuff like that.
So they have a lot of
cool.
workshops.
A lot of workshops, yeah. A lot of workshops that you can go to, wire training, simulated fight training, stage fighting.
Oh, that's great.
That
So
type of
just
deal.
for our listeners, so it's the Shoreline Studio Stunt Lab. If they just Google it, you can find
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
that's great to know.
And they've got, they say they've got limited availability, but I believe that there's still a couple of spots left for this November.
Okay,
If
fantastic.
they're interested, yeah.
That's fantastic. Cool. So kind of getting back into the whole acting game, right? You're in the city, you're auditioning for all the series here, and there's a ton of them here. What are your goals, if you could classify them into short, medium, and long term? Short being, let's say, 2 to 3 years, medium being 5 to 7, and long being 10 to 15 years. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to see yourself?
Wow. Like you got to put one of those wall wishes.
Yeah.
You know, every morning you wake up, you see your number one wish, and that's where you're going. I've got a variety of different ideas of where I want to go in my life. I really love film, and I really enjoy being on screen, either now fallen in love with the stunting and or being as an actor. So short goal for me within the next 1 to 2 years is train myself to the best of my ability. Train myself in the form of physical fitness, train myself in mental fitness, and also train myself in the correct form of acting that would be required. You know, there's so many different ways of acting, and there's so many different things that people feel like, oh, you have to utilize this technique, you have to utilize this technique, and someone finds a niche in like the Meisner technique. And
Right.
I want to, for the first 2 years going forward now, just really concentrating, finding my niche and finding my solid ground in what I want to take my acting from.
Okay.
If I want to go medium projects, within the next 5 years, I would at least want to be on 2 or 3 or 4 or so shows as not a major character, but at least a character,
Right,
a notable
like
character as a
like
supporting role.
Supporting recurring
Exactly.
or series regular or something. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could be a season regular, that'll be icing on top. you
Right.
know. And then in the long term, and I kind of do it already now, but in the long term, my ideal goal is to be sustainable in the industry.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that means different things.
Right.
For me, being sustainable in the industry is meaning that I can afford to live and I can afford to do what I love and go where I love and just experience the art form for what it is.
Right.
So if in the next 10 years I am a season regular, or if in 10 years I am an actor who does 10 different shows or 10 different TV series as small different characters, but I'm still able to enjoy what I do, then I've succeeded.
Right.
You know, for me personally, I also just started my own company. I started a production company.
What's the name of your company?
Blue Crane Ventures.
Okay.
We do live performance shows, circus based, just because my wife is acrobat contortionist. We're involved with the circus community, and we did a show last year. It turned out to be a smash hit with everybody that came, and everybody can't stop asking, are you going to do another one? So we decided to bite the bullet. We started our company, Blue Crane Ventures, and we're doing another show. And we're doing a show August 30th, so in a couple of weeks' time. And it's going to be at the Metro Theatre in New Westminster on Carnarvon Street. If you're interested, brown paper tickets, you can get some tickets.
Great.
And it's a circus-inspired show, and it's all about feeling the beat and feeling the passion of the performers. It's entitled Blue Moon because we feel like the amount of talent that we're going to have in that room doesn't always come together. They only come together once in a blue moon.
Cool.
Hence the reason for our name this year, Blue Moon.
That's pretty
cool.
cool.
So yeah, check us out. Definitely come along, say hi. Say, hey, I've heard you on the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. So what kind of performances can the audiences expect?
On this show, what we're going to be focused on is some lyra.
Okay.
We're going to focus on aerial hoop and straps.
Cool.
Silk. We're going to do Spanish web, which is really interesting. But
What
we
is
also Spanish web is a very, very painful process of a person hanging by their arm or their leg being spun around. And so you'll have one rope going up and then a small little rope that you can put your hands down and just tie it in. And then you utilize your core strength to spin you around this rope, and you do amazing tricks. And my wife is just actually going to do this performance this year, and I'm really interested to see what she does with it. And you can do it on your arm, you can do it on your hand, you just do tons of spins, and the core strength required for this is just incredible. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be fun. And then we've got a mentalist coming through that does mental magic. We've got a juggler coming through, and then I will be your host and MC for the evening.
Oh, nice. Something you've done for a long time.
Something that I've done for quite a while, and it just brings me back to kind of the cruise ship too, and just being on stage and doing a bit of comedy and just really entertaining the crowd with different types of crowd interactions and jokes and stuff like that, and just fulfilling the show. So really stoked about that. Yeah, Blue Moon, Feel the Beat, it's called. August 30th at the Metro. Brown paper tickets. That's where you can get your tickets at.
Fantastic, and we'll put a link to the event page as well. So
you're very kind. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would love to come watch it myself.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. I'll put a ticket aside for you.
Amazing. All right, cool. Okay, so let's transition into I wouldn't say a topic, but something I think a lot about. It's kind of funny, but I think more about failure than success in my own personal journey. Only because I believe that pain plus reflection equals evolution.
Yeah.
We all feel pain, we all fail, but we don't always take the time to deeply reflect, basically because it's quite painful to do so, and you have to let go of your ego and really look at your weaknesses.
Yeah.
But if you're actually objectively able to do that, the growth that you can achieve from that is just not comparable to anything you can learn from a success. So what are some of the biggest failures or challenges that you've faced that you feel have led to exponential growth?
Wow, that's such a deep and meaningful conversation. Hey, yeah, it's so hard. I for one person, I take this from that very good friend of mine, Corbus, who's in New York City. He always told me, he's like, do you know what? A person at any given stage is made up of all of his or her experiences up until that moment.
Right.
So the person that you are today is not the person that you might have thought you were 5 years ago, because like everything that you've experienced and the growth that you've experienced made you to who you are right now. And there's so many failures on a daily basis in this industry,
right.
Too. Like you go out for so many auditions and you think, oh man, I nailed that audition, and you never hear back from the casting director. Oh, what did I do wrong? What did I do this? Maybe I should have changed this. Maybe I should have changed that. And I feel like there's so much failure that you need to experience that failure to grow, like you said. Me personally, man.
It doesn't have to be professional either. Anything that could, maybe just something that's just made you question something on a very deep level. You know, maybe even something happened which really made you question whether you should do this. It's happened to me several times.
Yeah.
And then I almost maybe quit, but then there was something that made me stick on, and then I grew from that. Anything like that?
One of the biggest things that made me question if I want to be in this industry was the background work that I started to do.
Right.
I wouldn't call it a failure in what you do, because anything that you do to improve yourself is amazing. But
of course,
the moral point that I had by sitting down in a background tent and stuff like that, always thinking that, man, I must do so much better, and putting that pressure on yourself, or man, I must just evolve, I must just do better. And one of the toughest things that I had was being forced into a position where you have to go and work because you have to make some money. You know, and I feel like there's so many actors and actresses around the town that you do a job that you don't really want to do, but you need to survive. For me, that was background work. And the first year that I was here, I think it was like 104 days on set as a background performer.
Wow.
Which to me got just so draining.
Beats you down,
draining. It just beats you down. And my one outtake from that was, you know what? I do not, like I said earlier, when I finally said, okay, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, is when I started seeing a little bit of a progress and a growth within the industry.
Right.
You know, for my very first gig in Vancouver was on the TV show Lucifer.
Right.
And I play a cop or an FBI special agent, and it was literally 4 months after I stopped doing any type of background work that for me was a very draining thing, because you just spend the whole day not really contributing, although you are, like as a background performer, you are contributing to the show. And just for me and my psyche, I kind of felt I'm taking a step back. Right. Maybe just also because I came from being a cruise director and being in charge of the whole production. Now I'm sitting, you know,
It's humbling. It's a humbling experience.
It's such a humbling,
right?
But I needed to experience that. I needed to find that humbling experience. I needed to go back, and I spoke to Kara for endless nights, going, "Man, I just don't know what to do." And it beats you down and it beats you down. But it finally brought me down to the fact where you said so humbling, where I'm like, you know what? If I can do this, I can do anything.
Exactly.
If I have the capability of being a cruise director and then stepping down and for 104 or so days being in that position where you're not the main guy and you're not in there the whole time, and that as soon as you realize that and take the positives out of that you know what, I can only build from here,
right? And
that's what happened. And 4 months later, there I was,
right,
in a show that I did maybe 60 or not 60 days, but like a ton of days on his background. All of a sudden, you're a principal actor on it.
Right. I think that's a great example, because too many people want the gold, but they don't want to eat the shit.
Oh yeah.
And first of all, if you haven't tasted shit, you're not going to appreciate the gold, and you're not going to continue to work hard, and sooner or later you're going to slip. And second of all, I think when you have humbling experiences, you somehow like take your own ego out of it, and then because work is work, right?
Oh yeah.
But sometimes on some sets, background actors and performers are not treated well, and it doesn't feel great. You're a principal performer and whatnot. But then once you're able to dissociate yourself from that ego part of it, then you don't seek the validation either.
No,
and then actually gives you a lot of confidence. I really believe that. I really believe that if you can like eat a lot of shit, it makes you super confident, because then when people don't give you validation, you don't care about that anyway.
I like it. I like what you just said by dropping the ego and expecting that valuation.
Right.
And if you don't expect that valuation from anyone, but you still like produce these amazing things, then you're winning. If you constantly seek your validation into what you're doing, and,
right,
that's not going to be a way forward for you.
Right. Great. So a segue into if you, what are 5 things you wish you knew, let's say 7 years ago, that you know now?
5 things, eh?
Yeah. Or if that could be spun into advice for someone who's
5.
7 years younger than you, or.
The first thing that I would say is enjoy the process. If I knew to take every moment for what it is and enjoying the process along the way, right, and just eat up all the information. Mm-hmm. If someone's speaking to you from a point of view where you maybe not understanding, or you may be disagreeant on, take a sec to listen to them, because maybe they've got a valid point. So right, the first thing, and I think the most important thing that I would say now, is I wish I listened.
Right.
I wish I listened to advice. I wish I listened to other people who's gone through the exact same experience.
Right.
And you're going, no, mine's going to be completely different.
Right.
But you know what? They're speaking because there's 1,000 or 1,000,000 people that's going through that same thing. So
right,
if they've been there, it might not be the exact same as yours, but
right,
there's definitely going to be some similarity. So listen. And I wish I listened. I wish that 5, even 10 years ago, when I was sitting on the cruise ship for the very first time or something like that, and then someone said, listen, for you to do this, and if they've been there, follow these simple guidelines and follow these rules, I would have. And I'm trying to listen now,
mm-hmm,
because there's so many people that you'll meet on a daily basis that's going to be in a better position than you in
right,
that industry, and they mm-hmm, would have gone through what you're going through, and listen to them. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would wish I knew 5 years ago. Listening. Yeah, man.
Listen from someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't always listen to me. I mean, we're still all going through this process together,
yes,
so.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, Derrick.
No, thank you. I must admit, when you contacted me and said, "Oh, please, can you come on the podcast?" I'm like, I was so stoked, because as we spoke earlier, there's not a lot of these podcasts that you can go and listen to, and just chatting to the regular Joe on the street who's going through a lot of the things that everybody's going through on the street in the industry. You know,
Right.
so I commend you for doing it. I take my hat off to you. Thank you so much for doing it and inviting me. It's been such a pleasure being here. I really appreciate you for who you are, because you came over from Toronto and you're doing so well within the industry. And I feel like if you could do a little bit of a bio on yourself, you definitely should, and give some advice and a couple of tips, because you're killing it, man.
Oh, thank you.
See, so humble too. Stay humble, man.
No, just my advice is just like you said, love the grind, love eating shit, and love the growth, love the process, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no end. I mean, what? You're a series lead, and then what? Like, you're just gonna be happy then, and then what, right? Like, I mean, one of my favorite athletes is Cristiano Ronaldo, right? And he just, I don't know if you follow soccer, but he just moved to Juventus.
Yes, he did.
Right? And leaving Real Madrid is, why people from the outside, you would think, why would he leave Real Madrid?
Yeah.
Right? But then I was watching his interview, and he said, as soon as he gets into a zone that's too comfortable, he needs to get out.
Yeah, he needs to challenge himself.
He needs to challenge it. He's already won the Champions League like 4 or 5, like twice or thrice with Real and then with United. And now he wants to go to a club that maybe is slightly not at that level, but has the potential to be, and he wants to be the one that can take them there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you followed David Beckham at all, but the same thing with David Beckham. And so many people gave him criticism for going over to Spain. And then when he left and went to LA Galaxy and stuff like that, people were like, well, what is he doing? You know? But for him, the sport is greater than just him.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said, the sport is greater than me. I'm going to go over to LA Galaxy. He played there, and now he's still part of the massive franchise, which is soccer, and is such a role model for such a lot of people, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. If you think about our industry, like you say, okay, cool, you're a serious lead. You might have 2-3 seasons. Mm-hmm. 2-3 seasons are gone. Now you can't just be known as Joe that played on this show. You
don't want to be just like on 2 episodes anymore. Now you're in a series lead category, so now you're waiting for the next series that you can be a lead on, and that might not happen for a while.
That might not happen for a very long time.
So,
you know? A lot of actors drop out of screen and drop out of the circulation for a while, and everyone's like, oh, where did that guy go? Have you seen this person in a while? Like,
right.
You know, and that happens so often.
Right. Love the process, love the grind, love eating shit. Yeah. Thank you, Derrick.
No problem. Thank you so much, man.
So that was my chat with Derrick Van Wyk. What a great guy, full of positive energy. Remember to check out his cirque show, Blue Moon, Feel the Beat, on August 30th at Metro Theatre in New West. The link will also be in the bio. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back soon for another episode of Jagged Parts.